look at the gradient, it's 8% average, but it does kick up on a couple of points to around about 11.5%. And these three climbers again in this leading group will try and put the pressure onto the shoulders of the man in the pink and white jersey of T-Mobile.
Well, as much as I love Ralf Aldag, he's a great fighter, he's been the champion of Germany as well. Can't see him hanging on to the pure climber on this one, the 4 class. As we see now Gilberto Simoni, who's never happier than when he's actually turning the screw. Last time we came here, our old friend Laurent Jalabert was the man who went first over the top. We haven't been here since 1997. How time flies, 7 years ago.
Laurent Jalabert on that occasion, I think, was the winner of the King of the Mountains classification as well, and he built his lead in that classification over a couple of long raids on days like this, and that's certainly exactly the same tactic that's been adopted by Richard Virenque in this year's Tour de France, and he, in fact, attacked and got the big lead in an area of mountains called the Massif Central, which is not really regarded as the big mountains of the Tour, but he built up a lot of points on that very first day into the big high mountains, and that's a lead that he's defended ever since then, right the way through the Pyrenees, and fairly admirably too through the Alpine passes as well.
Now, a grim shot there on the face of Gilberto Simoni. And these are the two chasers here. Now, they're about to start the climb as well. That's Flores and Ludovic Martin. He hasn't got back on before the leaders have started the climb. That doesn't all well for Martin now. Even if Flores can nip away, I don't think Martin will find the legs on the climb. There is the cavalry all getting themselves organised for the chase down there. Again, it looks a little bit smaller, and it will certainly be smaller once they're on the slopes of the climb. They're saying now the gap, excuse me, is 4 minutes and 40 seconds as the US Postal have taken over control once again of the team. Everybody else watching and waiting, and what will they do?
Well, their recipe is exactly the same as it has been on all of the big mountain stages. Padrinos, Ekimov and Benjamin Noval sit on the front end of the main field and ride until they can do no more. And then it's up to different names to take over the pacemaking at the front. Now you can see the steepness starting to kick in this very difficult climb here of the Col de Forclaz. We're getting to the point where, although, as we said, it's an average of an 8% gradient, at the bottom part of the climb, it actually clicks up to 10% on a couple of occasions.
Yes, this is a toughie, the Col de Forclaz. You can see the lovely crowd there, and this is our second first category climb of the day now, and already there is a little gap happening at the back. When it kicks in at 8% with the steep parts of 11%, I don't think Aldag is going to hang on to three very good climbers. In fact, he's about to slide away from the field, I think. So Aldag, there he is, his face hurting now. He's just unhitched at the back. There they go. This one is a climb too many for Aldag. It's a shame, but it means that the race behind might slow down, and those three riders might now have a chance of winning the day.
Tough to see a courageous bike rider that's unable to stay in contact with those three climbers, but those three riders that he was with are some of the best mountain climbing riders in the world, and especially Richard Virenque, and another man put under difficulty by the two climbers, number 51, Christophe Moreau, can no longer stay in contact with Richard Virenque and Gilberto Simoni.
Well, who does that leave at the front then? Just Richard Virenque now, and this man is hurting. But there we have now, Moreau is always a suspect climber, and those two riders in tandem now, Simoni and Virenque. Having said that, it looks as though Moreau, there's been a slowing in the ways there. I wonder if they slow because they want Moreau to stay with them a little bit longer.
Well, I thought Moreau was having a spot of bother there. He was actually probably put under pressure by the acceleration. I was talking about the climbing ability of these three riders. Well, the two men on the right-hand side, Gilberto Simoni in the red jersey, and the left-hand side, this polka dot jersey of Richard Virenque, are very aggressive climbers. They can accelerate quite quickly, and their change of rhythm is very often damning to a rider like Moreau, who climbs at a steady tempo. You can see on the right-hand side, Gilberto Simoni looks pretty good here this afternoon, and he will certainly be looking for the victory, as he did towards the latter part of the Tour de France last year.
I think Simoni is looking for the stage win. There's no doubt about that. No, he's 32 years of age, and another man who's 32 years of age. He's leading the Tour de France. But this one is Italian, Gilberto Simoni. Only stage win came in Ludonville in this race last year, but twice he has won the Tour of Italy. This year he's been his second. And this is now the detachment too of Ludovic Martin. That was to be expected. Iker Flores is going to continue his ride towards Simoni and Virenque, I think, and he'll soon get Aldag in his sights.
Well, the race situation up the road, 3 leaders, Christophe Moreau, Richard Virenque and Gilberto Simoni. They're being chased by Aldag, who's been just dropped a few moments ago. Iker Flores has now taken up the chase behind them, and Ludovic Martin has now been left behind. You can see right now that the pink jerseys of T-Mobile are moving to the front end of the main field. From the right-hand side, I also noticed that Pavel Padrinos has disappeared from the front end of the blue train. I think his job done for the day.
Well, I wonder if maybe it's the 4 class where Jan Ullrich is going to attack. It is amazing that all the riders are expecting him to go. That Daniele Nardello, teammate of Ullrich there, who's gone to front, and the pace has been taken over by Sergei Ivanov. Now, last time Ivanov did this, and watch out, Guerini is rushing up on the right as well. Last time this pair did this, they hit Lance on the climb.
That's what they're trying to set up. Sergei Ivanov, a pretty good climber, but they don't have anyone else there. In fact, if they were trying to set the tempo hard enough to try and launch Jan Ullrich onto the offensive, they should really have had Giuseppe Guerini right up there alongside him. Right, so moving up onto the shoulders of Armstrong, there is the white jersey. You can see that red, yellow and black helmet is the champion of Germany, Andreas Kloden. They've decided now is the time to stop messing around, and let's see if we can just crack the American and see if Lance Armstrong can move up and challenge us and stay in contact.
Big storm clouds on the horizon now because Sergei Ivanov has continued to go, and it looks as though they've allowed him to move clear. Not sure whether that's going to help anybody, but Ivanov has gone and taken the pressure off a bit, I think.
Well, I can't really see the sense in that. If they're trying to set something up to try and attack Lance Armstrong, they should have really tried to stay together. But what they have done is reduce the numbers of the US Postal Service riders in this group. It looks as if that was Tricky Beltran moving around the outside to come to the aid of Lance Armstrong. They're getting themselves nice and organized. Let's not forget Rolf Aldag is still a little bit further up the road, but I would expect by the time they catch him, he would be somewhat of a spent force.
Well, I can only think that Ivanov has done that. Oh, back he comes now. He realised what he did was a bit too much damage there, and he's come back to wait for them. He is an hour and a half behind on the individual classification, but he was there for Ullrich.
They were just testing the waters, just trying to see what the reaction was going to be, and you see what happened immediately. Armstrong said to his boys, let him go. We don't care about Ivanov. If they want to have a situation where Jan Ullrich can launch the attack, well, it's up to Jan. Oh, that was Carpet to the back. He had a slight problem, the rider from the Balearic Islands, but he seems to have got himself ticking over again and should recuperate.
Yes, we need to look where the white jersey is now, because if Carpet is here and the Volkler isn't, then he could be losing that white jersey today. And this is the life at the back of the peloton. Grisha Niemann here. This looks to me as though this might be becoming one of the big climbs of the day. We'll find out. We'll take a break, come back and rejoin us for all of the action. Welcome back. Now the bunch is shrinking quite alarmingly here. Only a few strong men are left. Levi Leipheimer is still there. So too is his teammate Rasmussen. Thomas Volkler in the white jersey is still there, marking Vladimir Karpitz, the man nearest to him in that competition. These are the 3 men now left at the front. Climbers all sharing drinks, and it looks as though Simoni on the front is getting stronger. Well, I keep remembering what Lance Armstrong says, watch out for Ullrich in the last week of the tour. He is always the strong man.
He's a very strong man. You cannot discount him. Beltran on the front now. There is Floyd Landis just sitting alongside. Armstrong has still got some very strong, dedicated teammates up alongside him. Also in the group as well, just off to the right-hand side, was the other rider from Armstrong's team, Chechu Rubiera. Oof. But it looks as if somebody's hit the wall, slipping back through. Tricky Beltran, number 3, job done for the day.
I'll tell you what, seeing there that Beltran has gone as well, that's forced George Hincapie now to take up the running one by one. This is crucial moments here, because the boys from US Postal have got to be getting tired, you know. They can't keep sitting on the front of the peloton of the Tour de France pacemaking like this without losing. And we've now seen Pavel Padrinos, Vyacheslav Yekimov, Tricky Beltran all fall to the back. We're going to be left, as usual, on the last climb, Paul, just Jose Azevedo.
And let's not forget, Phil, it's still a long way to go to that final climb. Look at Ullrich. He is so concentrated. He looks like a beast of a man, looking over to see if there's going to be any possibility that he can challenge Armstrong. I still think if there's going to be any challenge from T-Mobile, it's going to be on the final climb of the day. But what they're doing right now is trying to scare US Postal. They're trying to make sure that if they do get to the final climb of the day, Armstrong is going to be isolated.
And you always ask where the devil is. Well, we just passed him. He saw the 3 leaders first. The gap is 3:37 to the remnants of the boys in between. That'll be Aldag. And the second chase is the one with the yellow jersey in it, 4:15. And they are just ahead of a peloton, which is now cracking big time. This is Iker Flores here. And the way he's looking as though he's going, I think he's got a real chance of contacting now that leading group. There's the very, very select peloton.
And the select peloton again is coming under the control of US Postal Service. They rattled the cage of Armstrong just for a few moments there at T-Mobile, but you know what? They didn't get rid of all of Armstrong's faithful men. And this man is incredible to see the job of work he's been doing. Georgie Hincapie just sitting on the front there. He's lost a little bit of weight over the last couple of years, which is why he's changed from being a man who was only able to ride superbly on the flat to being a man now who can ride very well in the mountains and stays along Armstrong's side for many, many mountain passes on these big alpine days.
We're coming right in close here on Thomas Vogler at the moment, who has turned out to be a magnificent rider. We can't speak too highly of him. And Lance Armstrong checking on the faces of the men behind. So too on his shoulder there, Andreas Kloden, 3rd and 4th in the Tour de France. And one gets the feeling that they were right to respect Ulrich today, because he's beginning to get a little bit itchy for an attack.
I don't think it'll happen just yet. The best place would really be on the final climb of the day, but you can feel the nervousness in the main field at the front here. Everybody's waiting for some kind of attack. Just over the shoulder there, I caught a glimpse of Ivan Basso looking a lot more comfortable today than he was yesterday on the slopes of the Alpe d'Huez in the individual time trial. There he is, number 61. Looking a bit further back, there is Giuseppe Guerini. Vogler's great.
He's moving back up on the outside there to get in amongst the leaders. We've gone back to the leaders right now. This is Richard Virenque making the slopes look as hard as they actually are for a change. And right behind him, Christophe Moreau and Simoni. Points today on the top of the 4 class. It's a first category climb. Virenque will be the king of the mountains for a record 7th time. He'll get those points now.
These are 3 strong men at the front end of the race, and they've still got a very good possibility of surviving, because right now in the tactical game that's being played behind, none of these men are a threat at all to the overall supremacy of Armstrong, and not even to Ivan Basso. And in fact, now that without the presence of Rolf Aldag here in the group, there's no threat to the team lead of Team Mobile in the overall classification and Team CSC. So I would think we will have a little bit of a pause for a while until we get to the next climb of the day. This is an 8.2 kilometer climb, this climb of the Col de Forclaz, but the difficulty is this is the steepest climb of the day, with an average gradient of 8%, and certain sections at 10.5%, and I think we're just going to one now.
I think, I was going to say, I think I'll go for the 10.5 here. Right here, it's a good slope. They have just under 3 kilometers still to climb to the summit of the Col de la Forclaz. Then we'll drop down to Tom. There'll be a sprint down there for the green jersey, and then we go on to the last climb of the day, the Col de la Coifferie. And that, I think, is where we're going to see an awful lot of action, possibly change the shape of this race. Number 101, the trident over his head as Iker Flores continues his approach. He's still looking at 3:29, not really running away. He's only 35 seconds in front of the peloton, who have now swept up Ludovic Martin.
Yeah, he looks energetic in the way that he's actually pedaling, but he's not really opening up that much of an advantage over the main field. Look at this on the front, Big George just setting the tempo. He's got his head fixed on getting this group to the top of this climb together, trying to make sure that no surprise attacks come. He's riding at a tempo which is really hurting everybody's legs, and the reason he's doing that is to discourage the attacks coming. On his wheel is Chechu Rubiera, a little bit further back. He's got a quick glimpse there of Floyd Landis, still looking very comfortable. The white jersey, the leader of the best young rider competition, number 129, Thomas Vogler, still very much in contact with the group. But I don't think, Phil, we will have a big showdown until the final climb of the day. But this climb here, the Col de Forclaz, has really put a lot of people's bodies into stress.
Well, again, we're seeing a great ride from Levi Leipheimer. Rumours circulating. He's thinking of moving across to US Postal next season, where he came from originally. Meanwhile, George Hincapie in his 9th Tour de France continues to ride. Tremendous tempo. He's never been in such a position before in the Tour de France. He finished 47th last year. But Hincapie is riding in a much better position at the moment, 33rd. Concentration. There are, in fact, 25 riders left in this group. And as you can see, 5 of them are all US Postal, so it's 20 versus 5.
Look at Ulrich just on the shoulder of Armstrong there, sitting rock solid on his machine. A powerful beast of a man. He's waiting for the moment to pounce if he can. Further up the slopes, these three climbers have been setting the race on fire. The two men who have done the most remarkable job are in first and second place here. Richard Virenque and Christophe Moreau rode across a 5.5-minute gap to join the group of the man in the red jersey, Gilberto Simoni.
The riders continue towards the top of the Col de la Forclaz. They have not got a long way to go now. So as the riders come up towards them, there's still enough time away for us to take a break, and then we'll come back and see them over the top of the climb. These two riders are clear. They are 4 minutes ahead of some stragglers, and they're going very, very strongly indeed. Ulrich awaits his chance. We'll be back. Welcome back, and this is a sad sight for Thomas Voeckler, but he's finding his legs again. He's just being detached here from a very select group of 25 riders, and of course still in charge of this group are the Spanish teammates of Lance Armstrong and Floyd Landis there. Ulrich still hovers in the shadows, waiting for his chance to make a move, and we aren't too far from the top of the Col de la Forclaz. These boys are nearer than the rest. Richard Virenque here driving on, a little bit of respite for him. In fact, we're going down, but I think this is a false flat before we climb up again as we wait for the top of the climb itself. But we may just have gone over it. Our camera's staying with the main field there as Virenque leads the charge, which would be interesting because I think he would have taken the maximum points from that climb.
I think there's still a couple.
I think there's a false flat, isn't on the Forclaz?
A couple of kilometres still to go to the summit of the Forclaz. Right in the middle, just near the summit, there's a small town called Le Villard. I think that's where the three leaders were just going through. This is the man caught in nowhere, and obviously his effort will come to naught in a few minutes' time, because just behind there you can see the front group, the heads of state of this year's Tour de France, and nobody really missing from that group here this afternoon. Although Jan Ulrich, to me, is looking very frisky indeed, and I'm sure he's planning something on the final climb of the day, because it's really his last chance to pull back some time before the last individual time trial around Besançon, and the possibility of once again finishing second overall in the Tour de France, because I do believe he's too far down to win this race anymore.
I think he is, and is he too far down to get to second as well? We'll find out. But this is Iker Flores. He made the big move, but he didn't really get away, and the steady tempo riding means that they are bringing him back and putting him back in his place in the race here. As we continue, shortly he'll find that same little bit of descent before we start the final climb to the top of the Forclaz. There's the peloton, just trying to strain round the corner there to see if the white jersey of Voeckler is still there, because the man who is most dangerous to Voeckler, Vladimir Karpitz, is still in this group, and he could be racing into the white jersey. And one would feel very sorry for Thomas Voeckler if he was to finish in Paris without any jersey of his own.
Fingers crossed. Here he is, battling away. He's not far off the ground. Let's face it, Phil, the men he is trying to stay in contact with are the big champions of the Tour de France over the last few years. Armstrong, Ulrich, Kloden, men who have got a serious talent for going up mountains. This is his first serious attempt at the Tour de France. I know it's the second time that he's ridden the event, but it's the first time he's been in a situation of having to try and defend a position in the overall classification, and he will have learned a lot about himself over this last 14 days.
That's no doubt about that. I think he's going to have a struggle now to hold that white jersey. Got to limit this escape to 3 minutes. The main field of Rice Carpets will be in the white jersey tonight. 3:15 is the latest gap coming at us now. These boys heading up, 3 of them, over the Armstrong-led chase group. And Simoni has other things in his mind right now. He's not worried about the points anymore. He wants the stage win. There is the group. Oh, it was 25. It's now a handful of riders. They're not very far from the top now. This is the false flat before they kick up to the summit, and the leaders must be very, very close to sprinting out the points.
Can't be too far away from the top of the climb, the 3 leaders, and then they have a long descent down into the valley. They go through Bluffy, then into the town of Thônes, and then they will begin the climb up to the Col de la Coifferie. This is just a little bit further down the road. A lot of riders in serious stress this afternoon. We're looking here at Santos Gonzalez and Francisco Mancebo. Now, this is a surprise.
Well, he's been slowly going downhill, I'm afraid, over these last few days with his form, and so is his overall classification standing. So it looks like the day hasn't improved on that too much for him anyway. Santos Gonzalez had a very good time trial yesterday, is in this group, and with him also there Pietro Cauchioli. They want to get back, and this is Mancebo. There's a bit of a strange riding style, the way he locks his head over on one side, a little bit reminiscent of Britain's Tom Simpson. But as they continue, now they might get back. He's going to use some big gears on this chase here on the way down. There's the group, and he's forcing his way through. I can't believe he was dropped from that group, but not both he and Cauchioli. They've been riding pretty well.
They've been riding very well, both riding high in the overall classification. But for Mancebo, maybe the day is going to prove just a little bit too long. He's 6th in the overall race, and that is at 9 minutes 20 seconds behind Lance Armstrong. And Cauchioli is another man who's well up in the top 10. He's in fact 9th, 14 minutes 08 behind. They should make the junction there, but maybe just at the wrong time, as we're now just kicking up for the final last kilometre of the very difficult summit here to the top of the Col de Forclaz.
The thing about the Col de Forclaz as the riders come up towards the summit is that it gets steeper as you get towards the final few metres. The same 3 men, climbers all now, they've rid themselves of the other men of this breakaway. On the left is Richard Virenque. In the centre is Christophe Moreau, and the Italian on the right is Gilberto Simoni. Any one of these could ride away with the stage today, and the time gap is still in their favour, I think.
Time gap still in their favour, but the distance might not be, because we're still looking at 47 kilometres to go to the finish from the summit of this penultimate climb of the day. Christophe Moreau looking very comfortable. Gilberto Simoni must be thinking back to 12 months ago when he got himself a very good stage win over the top of the Col de Peyresourde. It was on the descent on the road into Loudonville that he actually got the victory. I wonder if he will think about trying to challenge Virenque at the top of this climb. I think it was a question of pride to try and be the first man to the top of the Col de la Madeleine. He's not really worried about points in this instance. The man who's most concerned is the man in the polka dot jersey. And look how nervous he is, Richard Virenque, looking over his shoulder.
He's just making sure there that Moreau doesn't take the points out of him, because this is it for him in the King of the Mountains. He's setting the first record of this year's Tour de France. 7 times a champion now for him, as he takes maximum points over the top of the Col de la Forclaz, followed by Christophe Moreau, who made no effort to take it off him. He's breathing a great sigh of relief. He was just wondering what happened to Simone. He's right there behind him. Now they can start their descent and go through the town of Tonne, and then we're going to start our final climb today, the Croix Fry.
Virenque, hand in the air. I think he's making a sign there to bring up the team car to bring on board a few drinks. So they're on the descent, and it's a fairly long descent as well, Phil. And I make a quick calculation that in fact Richard Virenque has got an 80-point advantage over Lance Armstrong, and I think there are only around about 55 points left out on the open road. So theoretically it should be the 7th title there for Richard Virenque.
Just got to reach Paris now, that's all. He can sit back and forget the points, but the way he's riding, he's not going to do that. He's a very proud man when he comes to winning the King of the Mountains, and he's going to probably say, they haven't picked up Aldeg yet. He's the next time check at 2¼ minutes. We go back to over 3 minutes. He's still holding a 50-second gap on the Armstrong-led charge. So Ralph may get over the top of this climb. In fact, he should do before he starts going down, in which case he'll freewheel down, take it easy, and wait for the arrival of that chase group behind.
Well, he needs to possibly recover a bit on the descent as well, because just looking at that group containing his team leader, Jan Ullrich, although he was trying to isolate Armstrong, may have found the acceleration of Sergei Ivanov actually backfired on Team Mobile, because in that group there are only 2 pink jerseys of Team Mobile and the 1 white jersey of Andreas Kloden, so they only have 1 useful teammate to look after them on the running towards the finish.
Well, that's true, and I must say that I think the way we're going at the moment, though, Aldag's going to get swept up short. It's a very selective group here now. Watch the rider in the white. Kloden's never had a Tour de France like this. He's sitting in 3rd place overall, and rather than inhibiting any attack, I think, by Ullrich just now, Aldag has stuck to his guns, and he's going to go over the top in 4th place here. And I wonder if he can get together on the descent and chase back. I don't think he'll try. He wants to get over the final climb of the day. Armstrong as group 38 seconds behind Aldag, so there's not much point in trying to hold them off.
What a great bike rider, getting into the move very early on, surviving over all of the big mountain passes. The acceleration as we come up to the summit here is coming from Michael Rasmussen. Just at the back of the group, Levi Leipheimer. He's still holding on to a very high place in the overall classification. Started the day in 10th. And as far as I can make out, apart from Mancebo and Cauchioli, most of the other riders in the top 10 haven't had any problems today.
And that was Rasmussen who claimed the points from the front of the group. So the field all together now taking drinks. We're heading down to the valley again. And that's Levi Leipheimer there, just popped in, number 151, and Giuseppe Guerini sitting at the back as we now start the long, very rapid descent as they make their way down the mountain. These are the leaders, Morrow, Gilberto Simoni and Veronk. We'll take a break, and our half-hour commercial free is still in front of us. So is the Croix free. See you in a moment. The beauty of the lake here now. We're on the borders with Switzerland. As we head into Le Grand Bournon, we don't cross the borders. We stay in France, as we see down there Annecy and just by Lac Le Mans. And look at this now, a little bit of dicey bottle exchanging here for Giuseppe Guerini at the rear of the chase group containing Lance Armstrong. He's taken on board enough for his teammates. There aren't many teammates left up there, by the way. The two important ones are there, though. Andreas Clouden in third, and of course Jan Ullrich riding in fourth place. Watch the left hander here as he tries to grab the brakes at the same time, and his hands full of bottles. And he's just about done it. Well, down there now we've still got 3 riders clear. 2 minutes 20 to Ralph Aldag and 2 minutes 43 to the Armstrong group, which we are looking at the moment. We've had our journey through the mountains all day today in a massive hard stage. The Col de la Forclaz. Veronk is over the top, 15 points, and he's now the winner of the King of the Mountains. And Morrow in second, Simoni in third. There was no sprint. Veronk in the King of the Mountains now has a massive 226 points. Lance Armstrong 142 and Christophe Moreau 112. And all of the riders we've talked about right there. This is Floyd Landis now riding on, and it looks as though Armstrong chatting with his team. Bit of team tactics being discussed there by Lance Armstrong with his team. Rasmussen just slipping off the back for a moment. Levi Leipheimer, by the way, is in here, and so too Ivan Basso.
All of the main contenders. I still get a feeling, Phil, that towards the end of the stage we will see a challenge coming from either Jan Ullrich or from Andreas Cloden. These are the 3 leaders, and although they're going uphill for the moment, they're still a long way from starting the very difficult final climb of the day, the Col de la Poivrière, as Aldag now has decided to sit up and wait for the main field, and they may well cause him to dig a little bit deeper into his reserves later on, as I do feel certain that this team, T-Mobile, have got to try and do something on this final big mountain stage if they want to get 2 men onto the podium, which is what I think they believe is possible.
The only man left of the original breakaway, which started at 9 kilometers, is Gilberto Simoni. Michele Bartoli, who was in the breakaway, is now in the following car because he's abandoned the race. Aldag will be the last to be caught from it. The 2 riders who joined Simoni on the Col de la Madeleine are making the pace right now, Morrow and Veronk.
I think there's going to be a huge battle when these 3 riders get to that final climb of the day, but they still need to stay together. They still need the assistance of each other. They still need to work together to get to the bottom of that final climb of the day together, because they are continuing to lose a fair amount of their advantage. Morrow on the front here is dreaming of a stage victory. The only victory he's had in the Tour de France over recent years, in fact, has been a very interesting prologue that he won in Dunkirk, and that was a couple of years ago, back in 1999.
I tell you what, I've just heard on the race radio that the white jersey of Thomas Voeckler is just coming back into the Armstrong group.
Fabulous. That is really the story for the Tour de France 2004 for me. Yes, we're going to see some records broken. We're going to see Lance Armstrong probably ride up to Paris and win this race for the 6th time. We're going to see Richard Veronk write his name into the history books with the 7th win of the King of the Mountains classification. But if you want a record of courage, I think the record of courage most certainly has to go to Thomas Voeckler in the white jersey. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for him.
Yeah, I think we both are, actually. These are the 3 leaders. The crowds are getting thick again. These are our Alpe d'Huez Renter crowd. They've come across from that mountain to these mountains today. It's about a 2.5 hour drive across to this part of the course from the Alpe d'Huez. 2:14 is the gap now to Armstrong and the main chase. We're looking at the 3 leaders here now, and slowly but surely they're coming back. Well caught, Gilberto. So Gilberto Simoni setting the pace. Normally you'd think on this time gap they're not going to make it, but the thing is that these 3 riders are excellent mountaineers, and once over the top of the last climb, it is only 13 kilometers downhill to the finish.
Well, if they get a possibility of attacking the final climb of the day with still around about a 2-minute advantage, I can see a major acceleration coming from the 2 climbers. Vironk, oh, this is a bit sad. This is the man who'd been in the breakaway for a long time, just going off the back of the group, Rolf Aldag, and actually just accelerating to reintegrate the group there was Bobby Julich, the American rider, and here's the white jersey. The white jersey here has been on and off the back of this race since he took the yellow jersey on day 5. He's been such a magnificent bike rider, just getting onto the back there as well. It's nice to see Michael Rogers, who with this performance this afternoon could see himself improving his place in the overall classification. He started the day a fairly long way down in 27th place, but with a lot of riders disappearing from the main field, it's quite possible that he could move up into the top 25 before the end of the day.
Well, great riding by Volker and great riding by Michael Rogers. If we look at the Château de Monton-Saint-Bernard. Another fine piece of architecture here in France, but don't forget the old rivals on the front, Richard Vironk and Gilberto Simoni. They've been clashing swords before in the Tour de France. Richard Vironk rode a brilliant stage here on Bastille Day to give the French their proudest moment. It was a long breakaway of more than 208 kilometers. But let's take our minds back to last year. We were on the road to Loudon-Viel, and Gilberto Simoni there getting the better of Richard Vironk, who was also in the polka dot jersey at this point. It was a big win for Simoni, this, but he'll well remember it now, because it could be the way today's stage is going to finish. And there they are together again. Déjà vu for these 2 riders out front, but they've got the added complication of Christophe Moreau with them. The gap 2 minutes 16, distance to go 37 kilometers. We'll be there, so will you. Welcome back as US Postal keep a steady control of this race. Armstrong has not yet been under attack. He's been alert. He's been expecting an attack. It has not yet come. As the riders continue on the way here now, as they continue to head towards the final rendezvous today with the Col de la Croix Free. And that's not too far ahead now. With 34 kilometers to go, and we'll be on that climb at about 24 kilometers to go. And when we get there, we will be bringing you a Powerbar Sweepstakes half-hour commercial free. And don't forget, live like Lance, meet the man, win the bike, get the coach, and find out more by going to powerbar.com. So there are the Alps all around the riders to remind them every second they ride today that sooner or later the pain will all start again today. And these 3 riders still have a chance. Gilberto Simoni now will not want to throw this away, Paul. There'll be some desperation moves on the Col de la Croix Free, but they've still got about a 10-kilometer bridge to it.
Yeah, that's the problem from the small town of Bluffy. They've got around about 10 kilometers into the small town of Tonne, and once they go through that final sprint point of the day, then the road does start to kick up, and it's a long climb, that final climb, 11.5 kilometers. I think we will see an acceleration come from Gilberto Simoni, because he certainly is looking for win number 2 since he came to the Tour de France 4 years ago.
And don't forget the riders here. There's 4 major jerseys in the Tour de France, and the best one is of course the yellow for the race on time. Armstrong wears that. The green jersey for the race on points held by Robin McEwen, but he's off the back in the last group again today, as expected, I suspect. Richard Vironk has won the polka dot jersey for a record 7th time today. Thomas Voelker is involved in a great duo battle with Vladimir Karpitz to keep the white jersey, and at the moment he is in the same group, although it hasn't been the case on the climbs all day. Well, you get some idea how fast these boys are riding on one of the hottest days of the Tour de France. Reflected off the road, they're saying, is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. 2 minute 12 is the location of Armstrong, this group here. as they continue now to take on board the fuel that they hope will fly them over the top of the Col de la Croix, which comes, we top that at 13 kilometers from the Grand Bournon.
So difficult to understand how hard it is to eat on a road like this and on a day like this when it's exceptionally hot, but you have to do it. You have to force yourself all of the time to keep eating, keep drinking, keep the energy levels topped up, because if the lights go out on a mountain stage, you can lose an awful lot of time. The three leaders, they seem to have lost a certain amount of impetus, but they are still holding on to 2 minutes and 12 seconds. That's the long valley road going down in towards Tonne. And once they go there, if they were to turn left in Tonne, they could be in the Grand Bournon in around about 10 or 11 kilometers. But unfortunately for them, the organisers have taken them to the right-hand side, and they're going to do a nice, nasty little loop over the final climb of the day, the Col de la Croix.
Well, these are the chasers now, a very select group, not actually chasing down those three leaders and yet holding them at 31.7. The gap is still holding, just, and looks as though Sergei Ivanov having a word with Ulrich and Guerini there. That might be prominent because the leaders are only a few kilometers, 3 or 4, from the start of the final climb of the day.
Everybody's getting ready now for this final climb. A lot of discussion going on there between Guerini and Jan Ulrich. I've noticed Bobby Julich is in this group here this afternoon. We've been on and off the back on a number of occasions to bring up bottles for Ivan Basso. Also in there as well, Sandy Cassar, the second place rider in the young rider competition. There's Francisco Mancebo. I think he's had a spot of bother on the road this afternoon. And he will be dreading, I would think, the arrival of this final climb of the day, because it might prove for him to be one climb too far. Ulrich really felt today Ulrich has to do something if he wants to try and keep his unbelievable record of never finishing lower than second in the Tour de France.
Well, he's got to get time today as well as time in the time trial to do that. It'll be difficult, I think. Just looking here at the back of the break as they continue now to course on. This is Rick Verbrugge. Well, don't miss the Bravers Countdown on television, as OLM will bring you the 25 most courageous comebacks in outdoor and action sport. And that is Countdown Courage 25. It's all new. It's next after our live coverage here of the Tour de France on OLM. They're still closing in. They're holding now at 2 minutes 12. And the Col de la Croix de Frie is nearly upon us, and that will be a commercial-free half hour. Yes, and welcome to our Power Bar commercial-free half hour now as the Tour de France lines up for the last big climb of the day. The first category climb of the Col de la Croix Frie. It takes us up to nearly 5,000 feet. It's 11.5 kilometers climbing, and it's going to decide whether our three riders who have been away for much of the day will still be away on the drop down to the finish in Le Grand Bournon. It's 13 kilometers from the top of the Col de Croix Frie to the finishing line down below. Yeah, looking down there as the riders, here's a long straight road now, and once we get down the other end of this road, we should be starting to climb, because we're 28 kilometers from the finish of the race now. We've been through Tonne, which is at 27 kilometers to go. We never actually saw the result of that sprint. The cameras never bothered to pick it up, but I'll certainly find it out for you. And these three riders now, and in fact, we're just getting to the sprint at 1,000 meters, the last kilometer here in Tonne, which will take us into the last 27 kilometers of the day. And then we've got the climb of the day, which starts in 3 kilometers after we go through this sprint. For the first time for a long time now, the yellow jersey group of Armstrong has brought this escape inside 2 minutes, 1 minute 58.
I feel that if these two riders are still holding on to the 2-minute advantage, they've got the ability to win at the end of the day. But I think there's going to be a battle on this final climb of the stage. You just look at how attentive that man is riding behind Lance Armstrong. He's got the eyes fixed on Armstrong's yellow jersey, thinking that should be mine. I want that yellow jersey. I've had it myself back in 1997, and ever since then I have to finish second behind somebody. He's finished second behind his own teammate Bjarne Riis in 1996. He's finished second behind Marco Pantani, but more importantly, he's finished 3 times second behind a certain Lance Armstrong.
And it's a brilliant piece of riding, whatever way you look at it as well. Here we are into the town of Tonne and the sprint here, and just ahead is the last wall in front of the riders. as they now come through. They're dangling. It's 1:56, and it's coming down very steadily now. They really want that mountain to start, and they've still got 3 kilometers to go to it. There's nobody sprinting there. I think I'm not sure whether that was the sprint. We're nearly on the line now, and Simone looks as though he might take the small prize. There it is. Simone, Veronk, Moreau, and nobody bothered to sprint.
Well, once they start to move away from the centre of town here in Tons, they will then begin the ascent of the Col de la Coifferie. And it's around about a couple of kilometres after they've gone through that sprint point that the road will start to kick up. Initially, it goes through the little town of Manigot, and then it really starts to get very difficult. It's around about 5 or 6% the average gradient of the first part of the climb. But in the middle, after around about 7 or 8 kilometres of climbing, it kicks up once again to throw a nasty percentage of 10.5% gradient at the riders.
Well, we're seeing the 3 leaders here, but this looks like Rick Verbrugge has gone from the group. No, this is Veronk who's gone here. No, it is Verbrugge. Yes, we're back with the peloton. Big switch around.
It's a big surprise here to see this move coming from Rick Verbrugge, because he's a long way down in the overall classification, 50th at the start of the day, more than an hour behind Lance Armstrong in the overall classification. But he is a talented bike rider. We've seen him record the fastest ever prologue time trial in the Giro d'Italia. But it's the first time we've mentioned his name in this year's Tour de France.
It is, and they're not going to chase him down directly. He probably guessed that too. But what he will do is become a carrot that might finish off those 3 riders up front, as Rick Verbrugge still holds the record for the fastest ever prologue time trial in the Tour of Italy. So he is a man who has a lot of speed in those legs, and this is his big move now. And as Paul says, we haven't mentioned his name in nearly 3 weeks of cycling here on the Tour de France this year. Now he's making his bid.
Well, that's the leaders just cruising around the town. As you can see, the main group still hovering to around about a 1 minute and 50 deficit. And these riders very shortly are going to make the turn onto this very difficult climb. And actually, on that point there of the sprint point, they had an advantage of 1 minute and 35 seconds. So it's actually plummeted over the last 3 or 4 kilometers.
Yeah. Well, it'll be it's 1:45 on the Armstrong group, a little bit faster for Verbrugge, but yes, I'm not so sure it can work now. And looking at the face here of Moreau, I don't think he is either. And this is the chase down by Rick Verbrugge. Maybe if he gets up to them and on the lower slopes of the climb, it's the extra firepower they're wanting, because Veronk usually can find the pace to lift himself again back into the action. Cheers all the way from the crowd here in Tons.
Experienced bike rider Rick Verbrugge, you know, he has won a stage in the Tour de France before, but it was back in 2001, and that was on the road into Lavaux. But over the last 2 years, Phil, he's never actually managed to finish the Tour de France, abandoning in both 2002 and 2003. There's the white jersey there. He has got to hold on this afternoon over this final big mountain pass. If he can survive today and stay in contact with the group, he's still got a chance of taking that white jersey up to Paris.
Volker's got a real battle on his hands here. He's been weak on all of the climbs, but he has this great tenacity, and he comes back. Now he's got 11.5 kilometers uphill here. If he can hold that and then drop just a little bit and chase back mostly on the flat. Vladimir Karpitz, as we head under the 25-kilometer banner, the 3 leaders, lies in 17th place overall and is the man that will worry Volker most, because Volker is in 13th place. He's 16 minutes down. So we're looking at just over 3 minutes. That's all Volker can concede, and otherwise he will lose the white jersey. That's quite an interesting competition now, and Volker knows he's got to hang on for as long as possible on this very steep climb, the Coifferie.
That banner at the side of the road there, the white banner with the polka dots on it, is the indication that they're starting this final climb of the day, and it will read to them that they are facing up to an 11.5 kilometer ascent, 7.1 miles. Average gradient is only 7.1%, but the nasty thing is halfway up, it really kicks up to a vicious 10.5% gradient.
Well, we've had, don't forget, all the big climbs today. We've had the Col de Glandon, then we went over the Col de la Madeleine, the high spot of the Tour, the lesser Col de Tamier, and now we're on over the Col de la Forclaz. Just the one climb left. It started for the 3 leaders, and it's going to take us up to 1,477 meters. And then we have just 13 kilometers, almost the exact amount of mileage left as there is going up this last climb. going to be tough now. It's going to be tough for these three to survive.
Actually, it's going to be very tough. It doesn't look as if there's much power left in the engine room for these guys. The man setting the pacemaking on the front is Christophe Moreau, and I think the reason why he's doing that is because he fears an acceleration for the two climbers in the group. On the inside there, next to the grass, is Gilberto Simoni. Just behind him is Richard Virenque, who basically this afternoon, as long as he can make sure that he gets to Paris, is going to be crowned the King of the Mountains for the 7th time in his career, which is an absolute and utter record. But Moreau must be seriously nurturing hopes and the possibility of surviving. But I think, Phil, we are going to witness a battle here. It's 1 minute and 4 seconds back to Rick Verbrugge. Nobody's really interested in Rick Verbrugge at all in this race. He's over an hour behind Lance Armstrong in the overall classification, only just making himself onto the first column, as they say in the sport of professional cycling, of the overall result, number 50.
Now, looking at Verbrugge here, having to work very hard. He's not getting a great deal of lead over the peloton. He's only got 27 seconds, and I think we're going to find Iker Flores is going here. There he is too. He's been once and he's gone again, and still no reaction. Now, I think the excitement is all going to unload on the Col de Croix Fry, because everybody is getting very, very twitchy. Now, what price Ulrich to be the next?
Well, what you would like to see if Ulrich is going to launch some kind of attack. This is Rolf Aldag. We're not surprised to see him disappearing from the rear end of the group. He was in the breakaway as well, let's not forget, from the 9th kilometre of the day with the big climbers, Virenque, Moreau at the front, and of course Gilberto Simoni. But if Jan Ulrich wants to sort some kind of an attack out here, we will start to see pink jerseys moving to the front to overtake the blue jerseys of the US Postal Service team.
Well, Iker Flores, he went on the climb of the 4 class. They nailed him back that time, and he's now giving this one perhaps a better shot. But the tempo riding behind, it's not going too far away just now. Back up to the leaders now. This is the face of Gilberto Simoni, trying desperately to hang on as the climb kicks in. He might begin to move clear.
Well, once he gets to the steeper part, that will actually suit him. Look at Virenque, just looked across there at Moreau to see if there's any sign of weakness in the man who he knows is not able to change his rhythm on these big climbs. And Iker Flores just dangling off the front end of the group. The acceleration came out. He opened himself up 20 or 30 meters, but not any more at all, because the tempo now is being done for the last time by possibly 1 or 2 of these riders on the front. It looks like Floyd Landis in first position, Chechu Rubiera in second, and as always is the recipe of US Postal Service. They are waiting and keeping in reserve Jose Acevedo. Without an acceleration, Iker Flores' attack has been nullified.
And there's a chance that Aldag, who's dangling still in the convoy here, this man never stops fighting, he never stops suffering. He knows that he might hang on, but as this climb continues for a little bit of a way yet, to say the least, it's going to be hard for him to hold him in sight for the descent.
I don't think he will be seeing the front end of the main field for the rest of this afternoon. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this being Bobby Julich going back through the field, because he's done a lot of work for the team this afternoon, and that's been his job, to go back and forth to the team car, ferrying bottles of water and food for his leader Ivan Basso, who is in 2nd place in the overall classification. I still think, despite Bobby Julich having a bit of bad luck in the Tour de France and having 1 or 2 nasty crashes, he's actually having one of his best seasons in many years.
Just look now, and looks as though beginning to drop off. It sounds like we're getting another attack going at the front here, and it's attacked by CSC's Carlos Sastre, I think. And I wonder if he's got Basso. It is. He's got Basso in his slipstream.
Well, this is obviously preordained, and look at that. No panic on board there for the 2 riders from Lance Armstrong's US Postal Service. This was a very good move by CSC. They had to do something if they could. They've opened up a slight gap, but Armstrong just sitting there. He has here, Phil, complete and utter confidence in his riders. They're picking up the pacemaking. They're pulling themselves up to the CSC attack. Looking over there, it looks as if one of the riders from Armstrong's team has cracked, but he's still got alongside him there, Jose Acevedo.
So now we're down to just Acevedo, Ace as Lance calls him. But watch out now, because I think we're going to see Ulrich go now. He's waiting till they soften Lance up and he's going to hit him. I'm afraid Rick Verbrugge has got himself mixed up in something he wasn't expecting. And the riders now are splitting up out of the back of the group. We are once again, as we did at Villard-de-Lans, as we did on the Pyrenees, bringing forth just a handful of select riders.
Iker Flores now going, Michael Rogers going. The CSC want to try and break Ulrich if they can on this final big climb of the Alps in the Tour de France this year, because Ivan Basso is not feeling that confident that he can hold on to 2nd place in the overall classification. I don't think he was really trying to attack Armstrong there. I think he was trying to put T-Mobile into difficulty and maybe get rid of their two men, Kloden and Ulrich.
Well, Armstrong was the team that they used to account if they go down. It's still the white jersey here, just about keeping the tail of that convoy in sight. He can't afford to finish more than 3 minutes and a bit behind Vladimir Karpitz, otherwise Volker will lose that white jersey. Juan Miguel Mercado is also here, setting the pace at the front. That's a useful ally, actually, at this stage of the race, because he might keep him in good tempo to get him back up there.
The important thing for the young man in the white jersey there is not to panic, just to ride at his own tempo. But this is amazing to see Mancebo as well in difficulty. Just goes to show, as Armstrong said, Phil, before the start of this race, watch out for the last week of the race. This year it is going to be absolutely horrendous. The mountains have been concentrated in the last 9 days of racing. Moving further up the road, we'll see who else has disappeared from the group. It's not surprising to see Giuseppe Guerini being paced off the back, and Rick Verbrugge, the man who attacked as they went through the town of Tonne.
It may have eased slightly. It looks like these two are actually getting back up to that group just now. So it might mean that they've done the two attacks and eased back as the climb continues. We are now in the last 22 kilometers of the day, which means we still have 9 kilometers to climb here. So there's chance for a rest and go again. 30 seconds now because of those flurry of attacks. The trio of leader are now looking at only a 30-second advantage.
Armstrong still has two strong men with him on the front there. Floyd Landis backed up there now by Jose Acevedo. Acevedo has been kept in reserve all day. The majority of this afternoon stage has been sitting on the wheel of Lance Armstrong in the slipstream, out of the wind. Another move coming from CSC. CSC want to blow this race apart. They've lit the dynamite and they want an explosion.
Well, this is Sastre again who's gone. It is amazing because again it's left to Postal to try and pick up the pace, and Lance Armstrong just stays in the slipstream. Nobody getting involved there. And Lance grabbing that bottle and pouring the contents over the back of his neck. You'll never see the bike riders drink the contents. They don't know where it's been. There is Armstrong in the yellow and his arch rival alongside him, Jan Ullrich. You can see the road, and the big tall man is Vladimir Karpitz, and he's looking for the white jersey. Andreas Kloden is off to the right, who is the champion of Germany. Leipheimer is still there and holding very much his place in the top 10. He might even snick a place today.
Well, Sastra's gone out on the attack, but in fact, let's not panic. If you're on board the US Postal Service team bus there, you know that, in fact, that Carlos Sastre is a long way behind Lance Armstrong in the overall classification. He might be 8th and in the top 10 overall, but he's 13 minutes 52 seconds behind Armstrong. Armstrong just still keeping complete and utter confidence in his riders. He's still got their two strong men. He's still got Landis. He's still got Jose Acevedo. But there are still two very dangerous riders from T-Mobile, and I'm waiting still to see the attack come from Jan Ullrich once again to try and counter the moves by CSC.
Well, these three boys are about to see the race come round that bottom bend. At least we are, they're not. And it looks as though this might have been a really hard day for Simoni without the results. This is still Sastre coming up. They're not reacting to him. They're just keeping the tempo high to try somebody else doing it. And as you can see here, the boys anxious to grab the water. It is a hot, hot, hot day out there today. Hardly any wind again. Now look at that French flag. And here comes the big tempo riding by the group. And again, Armstrong isolated with his one favourite bike rider, who's still sitting himself high up in the overall classification in 5th place, Acevedo.
Well, the reason these riders pour this cold water over their heads is because if it's icy cold, it can just wake you up a little bit. Sometimes when you've been suffering for a long time during the day, the pain that goes through your body almost starts to put you to sleep a little bit, and that coldness just wakes you out of that and gets you alert again. It's a hot day here, 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 25% humidity, but there's hardly a cloud in the sky, but there is a nice breeze along the valley roads. A very small select group of riders there now, Phil. Ullrich is there, Kloden is there, all of the major contenders in the top 10 in the overall classification.
Yep.
Two Americans riding high in the overall classification, Lance Armstrong and Levi Leipheimer, both in this group.
So 21 kilometers left to go. Sastre has now caught the three leaders. That's a fine piece of riding, but it shows you how close they are. And I don't think he'll be able to stay around here very long. He'll have to go.
Well, he will look over his shoulders, and once he gets to the steeper part of the course, in fact, none of them have tried to stay on his wheels, so fast is he going by them. Let's not forget this man won a stage in the Tour de France last year as well, but that was down in the Pyrenees. He's opened up the gap, and the man to respond is Richard Virenque, straight across the gap and onto the wheel of Sastre.
Yeah, we expected that. Richard doesn't give up lightly. He's grabbed his wheel, and he's looking for points on this last climb, just for the sheer cheek of it now. He's distanced the other two, and I'm surprised that Simoni is struggling. I think Simoni himself might still recover, for at least on this occasion. Just look at that now as Acevedo here continues to Floyd Landis it is. And don't forget that we are watching now our power bar commercial free half hour and enjoying some fine attacking riding at that on the last climb of the day, the Col de la Croix-Free. Sastre setting the pace here now. Virenque having a little bit of difficulty hanging on to the speed of Sastre rather. And the time now, we're at 20 kilometers to go. The banner must be hitting us very, very shortly around this corner. There it is, I think, in the distance. And that is going to be good news for those two. Here is the wipeout of the other two. They've been now picked up by the Armstrong group, as it is the two Spanish riders, one Spanish rider and one Portuguese rider, holding Armstrong in third position.
So this looks like a very serious group of the arch rivals of the Tour de France. They're in fifth position. You can see the pink jersey of Jan Ullrich. And I think just now, I think Richard Virenque has popped off the back of the wheel of Carlos Sastre. Sastre's pace was just too high for the small Frenchman. After all, let's not forget he's been on the attack since the summit of the Col de Glandon, where he chased across a 5.5-minute gap. As we speed across the gap here, we will find now just one lone leader at the front end of this stage of the Tour de France. The final big alpine stage at Carlos Sastre. Last time he won in the Tour de France, it was in the mountains as well, and that was up to the summit of the Plateau de Bonasque.
Yes, it was, and he's taken his chance well. This will be a great try for Bjarne Riis too. It's going to end if he wins. That's the end of Richard Virenque. You've got one winner today, though. You've won the King of the Mountains, Richard. Mission accomplished, and there's still a few days to go in the Tour de France. 3 more to come. Now, Sastre here is doing the world of good for the team race for CSC. They lost the lead to T-Mobile yesterday, and if they win alone, they might be going quite a way to getting it back. They're behind by 3 3/4 minutes.
Armstrong comfortably surrounded by his teammates, and very shortly they're going to pick up Richard Virenque, and we will see. I feel certain, Phil, that if Ullrich wants to get himself onto the podium, he has to do something as we get towards the summit of this climb, because if he goes over the summit of the climb with a 30 or 40-second advantage, he should be able to keep that advantage on the run down towards the finishing line. The move by Ivan Basso, I think, was a move of desperation, because he feels that with the final time trial being in excess of 50 kilometers, there is always the possibility that he will lose his podium place to not only Jan Ullrich, but also he will lose it to Andreas Klöden as well.
Well, this is Christophe Moreau here, and he has now cracked straight out of the back of the group that caught him. I think we'll see Richard Virenque doing the same thing. Yes, there he is. Virenque also now, but his job is at least done. It's bad luck for it, really, because they raced so hard. Haven't seen the whereabouts yet of Gilberto Simoni. He's usually a toughie, and he might well hang into that group.
These riders just trying to cool them down a bit. They're on these slopes now with the final first category climb of the day, the Col de la Croix-Free, 11.5 kilometers, 7.1 miles. A very difficult gradient, and Gilberto Simoni too dropping off the back of the group, and it's not really a surprise. Escaped the start of the race after just 9 kilometers, and he was at the front for nearly all of the day.
Yeah, so the dream that nearly got him into fifth place overall, has now gone. He's going to fall out of this. That was his big shot today for a stage win, and it was a long way from the 9th kilometer to the 18th to go. So Simoni now dropping back as well.
Just caught a glimpse in that group actually of Sandy Cassar, the rider from FDJeux.com, and he in fact is in 3rd place in the young rider competition, so he will be doing a very good operation this afternoon, and it may well be that those 2 riders, Karpets and Cassar, are putting Thomas Voeckler's lead in jeopardy.
Well, this could be the runaway, the very, very similar to the Plateau de Bonasque, which we saw last year. Very, very similar type of ride. Doesn't win a lot of races, but Carlos Sastre certainly picks them well.
Watch out for Ulrich. He's just checking his gears, looking down there to see that he's in the right gear ratio. Over on the far side is Ivan Basso, just sitting on the wheel of Armstrong. He's waiting, and I'm sure he's going to do something as they get closer to the summit of the climb. Let's not forget, this is a very long climb up to the summit of the Poiffry. Behind Ulrich there, you can just see the orange and blue jersey of Levi Leipheimer, 10th overall at the start of the day, and riding in contact with all of the heads of state of the sport of professional cycling and the Tour de France this year.
Well, amazingly, Carlos Sastre has had no wins this year, no results to speak of at all until he come to the Tour de France, and now we begin to see him in the action. It was at Benasque last year, got his first stage win in the Tour de France for the same team he's riding for now, as the riders continue to slip away here and struggle. Sandy Cassar, big threat. He's in third place in that white jersey competition. A Volkler is going to have to fight. He'll take some serious risks on the descent down to Le Grand Bornand to try and get himself back into the action.
We're absolutely certain that he will, but I think the damning pace by US Postal Service on the front of this group may well see the leader of the white jersey competition more than 3 or 4 minutes behind by the summit of this climb. Ulrich is just sitting there and waiting, while further down the slopes Richard Vironca's caught up with Gilberto Simoni. A few moments ago they were combined in their efforts at the front end of the race, and now they're combined in their efforts at just surviving a little bit further back.
Well, I don't think they even spoke to each other. They've been friends all day, one way and another. They both wanted to win the stage, and now it's a matter of just holding on, getting into the finish, because the fight's knocked out of them. They won't be eliminated, no danger of anything like that. There's a lot of riders a long way behind today, and we'll see what happens when they get to the finish. There's a big cheer there.
Landis's job is done there. He's dropping back down the line, and that leaves now only one man left with Lance Armstrong, Jose Acevedo. Allez, Lance.
And Salut Phil. Oh,
that must be you.
Do you think so? How nice. Well, now this group is becoming so select, it is going to explode. It's got to explode now. And still, this is still Landis at the front, trying to pay. Where has Acevedo gone?
Well, that would be interesting, because Acevedo starts the day in 5th place in the overall classification. It may well be he's just dropping back to pick up some drinks for Armstrong, but that would be a major surprise if he was. He's been the strongest ally for Armstrong over all of these big mountain stages. This is the lone leader now, Carlos Sastre. Look at him gasping for air, just trying to keep breathing in a regular basis, trying to keep his breathing at a regular level to keep the oxygen going in there. He doesn't have that big an advantage over the chasing group of Armstrong. It's hovering around about the quarter of a minute mark, and if he wants to win the stage, he needs to go over the top of the climb here with at least a 30-second advantage. Acevedo's still there.
He's still there, but he's still there, just tagged onto the back, but I think his form is actually leaving him. He's been under so much pressure every day, and he looks to be getting a bit tired. You may remember on the road to Villard-de-Lans, he also went near the end. But you know, one gets the feeling we are going to be treated to one incredible end to today's stage, and Lance Armstrong may be called upon to try and finish it off again. Ulrich is waiting. There's been no attack from Ulrich today, and we expected it. They still have 5 kilometers to go. This is for the leader, Carlos Sastre. Sastre, who won in the Pyrenees last year, his only win in the Tour de France, and his only win indeed since 2001. And so now he's looking for his second win since 2001.
Looking for the 3rd win of his career as well. He's coming now to the steepest part of the climb. Once we get to that 5-kilometer banner, it actually starts to kick up to 9.5%. And after that, it kicks up to 10.5%. And that's when I think we'll see 1 or 2 riders put into difficulty. Just slipping off the back there was Georg Tocznik. Levi Leipheimer is very comfortably moving up. I think Leipheimer is actually improving as the race progresses.
So do I. I noticed too that Vladimir Karpitz, the danger to Thomas Volkler, had lost about a bike length at the tail of this group, so life's getting a little bit warm in the engine room for him as well. This is Floyd Landis, rumoured to be leaving the side of Lance Armstrong next year. He's had a big offer. We'll see, as he still remains loyal there. This is further back now, as again Richard Virenque tries to stay away from a small group behind him. As he continues up the climb, he's now past the 5 to go.
He's thrown out the sandbags there, getting rid of the bottles, getting rid of every last little bit of weight to try and stay in contact and try and keep himself in a high place in the overall classification. This is the leader, Carlos Sastre. His advantage just 18 seconds now over the group containing Lance Armstrong. But one man will find himself disappearing from a high place in the overall classification, Georg Tocznik, 7th at the start of the day. He's just a little bit, in fact, this is rather interesting too, because Vladimir Karpets too has started to crack. That is an indication of the fine job of work being done by Floyd Landis on the front. And
it's the strong men again left in the Tour de France. Let's have a look at the overall situation now. Armstrong is there, Basso is there, Cloden is there, Ulrich is there, Acevedo is there. Mancebo is in a little bit of trouble, and it looks as though Acevedo is also now in a big bit of trouble here. There's Axel Merckx, who's ridden extremely well today. I really thought he might have won this stage today, in all honesty, and he's in at the death, but only just. This little group is thinning out rapidly now, and we are in a position, as we see, Cloden is there, Leipheimer, you're right, Paul, Leipheimer is having a great last few days.
He's having a great last few days. I could actually see him moving up a place or two in the overall classification. Look at the face of this man, though. When will he attack? Can he attack? That's the question that must be going through his mind. He must realize now that as the kilometers tick by, as we go to the summit of this climb, there's less and less possibility of him repeating his second places that he's had over the last few years. Armstrong there in the middle is not showing any emotion at all, just concentrated on staying onto the wheel of his own teammate Floyd Landis. That gap, by the way, to Carlos Sastre has now started to go the other way. It's coming down. It's 11 seconds. And you can see, by the way, that Carlos Sastre is pedaling, Phil. He's losing a lot of power. He's rolling his body. He's asking the top part of his body weight to nod about, to try and keep the pedals ticking over. It was 18 seconds. Right now, just 11 seconds behind is the group with Armstrong. And Armstrong's pedaling cadence is almost exactly the same as it was yesterday on the slopes of the Alpe d'Huez.
He just sits there, pedals and concentrates and lets all the action come. Here's the catch now. Sastre back in his place. Leipheimer at the moment, because Cauchioli is in all sorts of trouble today, is probably up into 9th place overall now. That's another place up today for him, and there's still a time trial that might favour him on Saturday. But this man, Floyd Landis, if he is leaving the team, they're going to want to up his salary and try and keep him, because he is an incredible bike rider. And as this tour draws to an end, he is getting stronger and stronger. In the Pyrenees, it was Acevedo. In the Alps, it is now Floyd Landis who is the #1 man for Armstrong. Look at the look of aggression on the face of Jan Ullrich here, and I still feel this man, his day is not done yet.
I don't believe it is done yet, but I tell you what, Carlos Sastre there, just on the left-hand side at the back in the CSC jersey, he has to stay in contact with this group, because if he doesn't, Levi Leipheimer in the Rabobank jersey is going to move up another couple of places in the overall classification. Ullrich, look at the power he's getting out of the saddle. He's a strong bike rider. I cannot believe that he will not accelerate before the summit of this climb. But the man in a spot of bother at the back is number 17 there, Andreas Cloden.
I wonder.
3rd overall.
I wonder. And we still have 3 kilometers of this tempo riding to go to the summit.
Look at this, Leipheimer's cracked.
He was on the rivet. Hold on. He's got to go again. He's going again, because he's got 3 kilometers still to go to the summit.
Well, he was on the rivet there. He was just hoping he could stay in contact, and the acceleration put on the front there by Floyd Landis has popped him off the back of the group. Takes on board a bottle there, ice cold water to try and keep him awake, try and keep himself concentrated. Now, when this happens to you, you've got to sit back for a few hundred meters, try and recuperate, try and you get yourself into a rhythm, because if you don't, you can lose big time.
But he still has time on his side. All of those riders leaving him behind now are ahead of him in the overall, with the exception of Landis, of course, who's well down, having sacrificed time in favour of helping Armstrong. So he still could move up to 9th overall, but he's got to keep his rhythm. But the thing is, he's got to do his own rhythm now. He's been dictated his rhythm so far, and it's not good. He's got to do his own rhythm now.
Well, you can see his legs, they're buckling under the strain, and still Floyd Landis is riding on the front there. Looks like Spider-Man. That's the side of the road, Spider-Man, trying to encourage the riders here at the end of the big mountain stage of the Tour de France. Landis looks across at his team leader. Team leader hardly even acknowledges the stare. He's just concentrated. I think what he's looking at right now is Paris, to see if he can see it in the distance. This is further down. The 2 Frenchmen, Richard Virenque and Sandy Cassar.
Yes, and Cassar also riding ahead of the other white jersey today, which is Voigtler. Voigtler, let's hope on the descent he can start some magic again, because he needs to get back into the arena. These are the men: Landis, Armstrong, Ulrich. That's the order. Basso, Castra, and of course Cloden. They are the leaders. They are the survivors. As with every day in the mountains, they are the only men to be seen at the finish. So look at that now, as we see now Armstrong, his eyes again going deep in his head. Ulrich. And don't forget, we're enjoying here our commercial-free power bar half hour, as now looking to hang on a little bit and paying for his effort. Carlos Sastre is dangling. He could be off the back next. And the yellow jersey has never looked in trouble, ever. He concentrates, he sits there. He's used his team to extinction again. And the one man who is being very distinct is Floyd Landis. Fantastic riding once more by him.
Landis has just sat on the front of this group, tapping out the pedalling over the last few kilometers. But what they have done today is they've damned away their man Jose Acevedo from a top 5 position in the Tour de France this afternoon. The leading group there is made up of some really tough bike riders. Look at Armstrong in the yellow jersey. His face is a picture of complete and utter concentration, but his ears will almost be twitched backwards, trying to hear if we can hear the whistle for the acceleration of a tire on the road there, just wondering whether or not there will be any challenge for the man on his wheel there, Ivan Basso, and maybe from Jan Ullrich in the pink jersey. We're inside now, 15 kilometers to go to the final stage of the final big alpine passes.
And 2 kilometers from the summit, don't forget. And this is Vladimir Karpic. You see, once the elastic breaks, you lose ground very, very quickly. He is still the danger man, though, to Thomas Voigtla. And we don't no longer know the whereabouts rather of Voigtla. He's a bit further down the mountain. So Vladimir Karpic could be riding into the white jersey tonight. He's got to get just over 3 minutes, 3 minutes 33 seconds to be precise. Cassar, who's also riding ahead of Voigtla, he needs 4 minutes 24, and Voigtla will be ahead of everybody else in that. And Sastre has now gone 1 minute winning the stage of the Tour de France, the next minute hanging on.
But what he was trying to do was to go out and hopefully try and get himself the stage victory, and if possible put some pressure onto the shoulders of Lance Armstrong and Jan Ullrich, because Ivan Basso, I think, was hoping to try and get off the frontier and get himself a big buffer over the 2 German riders from T-Mobile, Jan Ullrich and Andreas Kloden, before the final time trial of the Tour de France, where even then the final result will not be known until we get to the finishing line in Besançon.
Well, there's no doubt who the top 4 riders are in this year's Tour de France, because they are again locked in battle on a shoulder-to-shoulder stage here. And again, the pacemaker Landis. Landis wallows in 35th in this race, but today, of course, finishing with these boys, he will jump up. Possibly, he won't go yet into a top 20 position. He might make top 30, but that's not why he's there at all. Karpic's losing ground all of the time now, as the battle for the white jersey will continue. Vive le Tour. Yes, indeed. Long live the Tour de France. We all agree with that, I'm sure. It's as popular as ever. As now further down here, Vironca's got a mate. Sandy Cassar is being paced also on the back there.
Juan Miguel Mercado was being picked up here by Richard Vironca, and they're trying to keep Vironca in a high place in the overall classification. Vironca started the day in 16th place, 1932 behind. He's already got 1 victory to take up to Paris, and that's the lead in the King of the Mountains classification, where in theory, as long as he doesn't have an accident along the route, he will win that title for the 7th time. Armstrong looks so comfortable out of the saddle here, just looking at the back of his teammate Floyd Landis, who has done the most excellent job here this afternoon of setting incredible pace, eliminating everybody else from the bike race.
Well, the 1:42 time gap we're getting is back to the group containing Richard Vironca, which isn't a lot in my money. He's still surviving extremely well despite his efforts again today, but the efforts winning him the King of the Mountains title. Jan Ullrich, well, he has not attacked. Riders predicted he would. The fact he has not attacked, to me, means he can't attack.
Well, he can't attack because of the tempo being set on the front of that group there by Floyd Landis. I think everybody's body is screaming out for surrender, saying, OK, that's fine. We're raising the white flag, because Floyd Landis has done a magnificent job for Lance Armstrong. And all of the time, Armstrong has just been sitting there in defense, waiting to see if anybody has got the legs to attack him. 2 riders from the US Postal Service, 2 riders from T-Mobile. The man who in fact has been isolated is the man who wears number 61 there, Ivan Basso. And maybe this afternoon, once we get down to the finishing line, because I don't think we will see a separation in these riders now, Jan Ullrich will get the stage victory that he's been looking for.
Well, it would be nice if that were to be the case, but as we've seen so often, if Lance Armstrong can sight the finishing banner, he'll go for it. Another 20-second win bonus available today. You don't get them in the time trials, but he'll certainly get them today, and that'll nudge him even further away of Ivan Basso. You take time when you can, because you never know when the Tour turns its face against you and you lose time.
Riders, I think, starting to get a little bit frustrated by the people running at the side of the road. It is such a dangerous thing to do, because the person running in front has no idea of the position of the rider behind. And I actually just saw Andreas Kloden trying to push a German supporter off the route. And it's a pity that some of these people are so crazy.
Well, we're getting just about to the summit of the last climb of the day. These are the select men of the Tour de France. Landis the pacemaker, and he's pacing the first, second, third and fourth. And if we could just switch round the back two, we'd have the right order as well.
Well, I think they're just about to do that for you, because I thought Kloden was just going to move in front of Jan Ullrich. Up to the summit of the climb, the final first category climb of the day, the summit of the Col de la Coifferie, and I've been waiting for the attack of Jan Ullrich to come, but it looks as if it's not going to materialize here this afternoon.
And I'm just wondering where Lance Armstrong went then, but there he is, and it looks as though Lance Armstrong is going to push his teammate over the line and say, look, you've done the work, pal, you take the prize at the top. And I think he just about got it. Might be a photo finish, that one, but the money's in the bank for US Postal. Anyway, it's Landis and the yellow jersey. The other 3 are following. They're not attacking. They can't.
This is Carlos Sastre. He tried to get out off the front and win himself the stage. He put in an unbelievable burst of energy, because what he was trying to do was dynamite the race on the final first category climb of the Tour de France this year.
This is Carlos Sastre coming up here, puts him 6th over the top of the Col de la Coifferie. The hills are now behind us. There is now just over 12 kilometers to go to the finish, most of it downhill. Who's going to win the sprint from these 5? We'll know in a moment. Welcome back. We are looking at 3 men left now. Individually, they went over the top of the climb. Landis was the one. Ullrich chased. Armstrong has come. The man missing is Basso as we go back down the mountain here. And now we are looking here at the white jersey coming over. And by my calculations, he is just on the edge of losing that white jersey. So as we look now, they're all looking around. Where is Ivan Basso? They have locked together. And now, is anybody going to push time in? And no, Basso is back, and so is Kloden. Can you believe that? The 5 men are together, and Kloden goes. Now, who's going to react to that as Andreas Kloden goes? Ullrich himself is not going to like that, but he can't react to a teammate, so it's left to Landis. Well, this is amazing. They are not giving up this race, even though it appears apparent that Armstrong has won it. They are still hitting him, even if he is forced on the defensive. He comes out with smelling of roses, shall we say. A
little bit of disaccord there between Armstrong and Jan Ullrich as well. Ullrich was up to the junction of joining Floyd Landis. Once Armstrong joined, Armstrong said, well, look, if you want to finish 2nd in the Tour de France, mate, you go to the front and ride now. But Ullrich didn't want to do that, and that's what allowed number 61, Ivan Basso, to return to the front of the race with Andreas Kloden.
I think that was a fine piece of teamwork there, because he didn't want to damage Kloden either. I don't think you can take that place off Kloden unless it's possibly in the time trial, or he's got good reason to keep pushing on. Anyway, the status quo now as 5 riders race down at Armstrong, Lloyd, Landis, Ullrich. There you can see when it happened, you know, there was arms and were waving around, and in fact it was very, very strange indeed. Now I think I don't know if everybody's lost pictures around the world, but we've certainly lost pictures here at the commentary position at the moment, as we are watching now riders on the way. The discussion goes on, and I'll talk about that picture, I think, at the moment, as riders will continue. And just now, I'm sorry if you have lost pictures, but we are seeing some pictures here at the finishing line as the riders continue down towards the finish. We are running out of time. They are all together. We are waiting to see who will attack next. And it looks to me as though we are now into what is about 6 kilometers to go. And international pictures around the world have been momentarily lost, as we can see some pictures being replayed in of what is happening before the pictures to the world have been lost. And we've got 5 riders still together now as they race towards the finish, as we continue in sound only to many of the outlets around the world. Well, and there was an attack by Kloden, the champion of Germany. There's a little bit of discussion, Paul, amongst the riders, but they're bringing it all back together again.
I think in the back of Armstrong's mind, what he's trying to do today is give one of his teammates a victory on a stage in the Tour de France, which is why he would not cooperate with Jan Ullrich once he regained the front end of the race. He initially, I think, once they went over the top of that climb, wanted Floyd Landis to try and get himself a lone advantage, and he was hoping that what was going to happen was, in fact, that they were going to stay off the front.
Well, the riders are still all together in the lead. There are 5 men out in front. Lance Armstrong now driving again, and following him is his teammate Floyd Landis. A total reversal of roles now, and I do believe Armstrong would be delighted if Floyd Landis could win this stage.
There's a big discussion coming on here, because I think Lance Armstrong wanted to try and give the win on the stage to his teammate Floyd Landis, and the big problem there is that he's actually now going to have to take the responsibility of trying to win the stage himself. But there's going to be a big challenge between himself and Jan Ullrich, because I think Ullrich today is going to find himself full of absolute anger by not getting off the front and getting himself a stage win.
Well, I think you're right. I think Ullrich is the man to beat. Basso in a 5-man sprint will not feature as well. Armstrong, as we have seen, he knows every finish that matters on this Tour de France, and that's where he might again score today. I think Andreas Kloden will be the pacemaker for Jan Ullrich to win the stage, and they're having a little chat here. And I wonder if Armstrong understands any German, if you could even hear it. But they've got Armstrong on the front, Basso sitting at the back. He's retaining his second place overall. I can tell you the battle between Carpets and the white jersey Thomas Volkler is 10 seconds difference at the top of the mountain in the white jersey competition. It's up to Volkler to make a great descent.
And I think he will do that. He will take every possible kind of risk on the descent. But these guys now are thinking about stage victory here as they charge down into the outskirts of the Grand Bornand. Armstrong is very attentive, looking over his shoulder. He wants to know the position of Andreas Kloden. Ullrich is very nervous. I could see it in his eyes on that final climb, Phil, up to the summit of the Coiffre. He wanted to attack, but I don't think he could because of the pressure being exerted on that group by one by the name of Floyd Landis.
It is not a climb to the finishing line, but it is certainly slightly uphill. That could mean if you sprint early, you might misjudge it and slow before the line. Not an easy finish on a very nicely surfaced road, brand new, in fact, ready for the Tour. As the riders continue to go down, Richard Virenque was the man who waved goodbye a while back now. We are running down to the last 3 and a bit kilometres of the race. We're looking for the 3-kilometre banner, and still setting the pace. Everybody having a go. There's no passengers in this breakaway, even though they've all got a lot to gain and lose.
No passengers at all, but what they do have to lose is a stage of the Tour de France. You have to be very attentive now. They're inside of 5 kilometres to go. The kilometres will slowly but surely be ticking away from these riders. They're just going now through the small town of Saint-Jean-de-Sixt, and that, in my counting, is around about 3.5 kilometres to go to the finishing line.
And 5 riders are locked together. No one is coming up behind them. No sign of Carlos Sastre as they're running now through the last village before Le Grand Bornand itself.
The man isolated is the man in the red and white jersey there of CSC, Ivan Basso. He's second in the overall classification, but he is alone. He has nobody to help him when it comes down to the final charge of the line. US Postal and T-Mobile, they have 2 riders each. Armstrong and Ullrich have 2 teammates alongside them, Floyd Landis and Andreas Kloden. I wonder if Floyd Landis, after the incredible work that he's done this afternoon, has got anything left to produce a sprint at the end of the stage.
The 2 great men of the Tours de France gone by. One is swinging off the front there, Jan Ullrich. The other is the maillot jaune, Lance Armstrong. I bet they finish first and second. Which way around will it be?
It's going to be a battle. Everybody is nervous. They realize now, inside of 2 kilometers to go, that somebody from this leading group of 5 is going to win the stage, and I honestly can't pick a winner. I'd like to think that Armstrong has got that ability, and I think he tried to give the victory away to his own teammate Landis. He tried to project Landis on the front on the descent of the Coiffre, because the man has done so much work for him today. He felt that he was the one who deserved the victory. Armstrong is a man who rides on courage and guts. If his teammate can't get the win, I think he'd like to offer this to the team.
I was about to say that the man to attack will be Landis, and Landis has gone. and that's to draw the sting of Ulrich, and that's exactly what it's done, and Ulrich is having to work very hard, and look who's chasing him down now. Armstrong straight onto the wheel of Ulrich. This was the move that had to be, to use the teammate. That's why Landis fell to the back. He's launched the attack. He's caught Cloden wanting a bit here. He's got to hold the back wheel of the rider in front, otherwise he will be given a separate time.
Don't forget, Ulrich in his amateur days was one of the fastest finishers in the world. But look at the counter-attack from Cloden now. This is, they've got to respond.
No reaction. No reaction. The race just got won here by Andreas Cloden. It's all over, and that's how you counter-attack a move, and well taken too, because I thought Cloden was about to lose time at that kilometre banner, and the gap is there. Landis is trying to make it best here, but we're racing for second place now. Andreas Cloden, the champion of France, is about to get a stage win here in the champion of Germany rather, is about to get a stage win. And look at this now, but Landis to the last minute drives on. Cloden doesn't have a lot more left here, but it's enough to win the stage, and a slight gain here because he lies third overall. He gets a 20-second win bonus. He will creep a little bit closer to Ivan Basso, and who knows what will happen in the final day's time trial. This is a bad result now, I think, for Ivan Basso. And still Ulrich is waiting for the move from Lance Armstrong. As Cloden goes up to the line now, it's not going to be far to the finish. There is a time gap, but the man in yellow is running at him with that usual determination. Ulrich is in the slipstream. Armstrong is coming with an incredible rush, and Cloden has realised it too late. Is there any stopping Lance Armstrong in this Tour de France? And the answer is no, there is not, because Ulrich has just seen his teammate beaten on the line by fractions of an inch. That was unbelievable.
There is Landis. That is the man that gave Armstrong the victory of the stage here this afternoon. That is one of the men who's given Lance Armstrong the victory in the Tour de France this year. All under front here, Andreas Cloden thought he had the victory, slugged the back over his shoulder just a little bit too late. Armstrong today, Phil, was full of absolute anger because he wanted his teammate Floyd Landis to win. If Landis couldn't win, then US Postal Service had to win. Stage win number 20 for Armstrong at the Tour de France, and win number 80 of his career.
Well, it's a case of win any which way for Lance Armstrong. Here comes the sprint now. I think it's for sixth place here. Axel Merck starting to lead it out, and that's Levi Leipheimer battling. I think Leipheimer will find himself upper place today in ninth, and he's still got some legs there to take on Merckx, and I think he just may have got beaten on the line by Merckx, but that's all right. That's a good result for Leipheimer, just over a minute behind the winner today, Lance Armstrong. It's unbelievable how he went for that. Cloden made the mistake of thinking he got it, and then Lance Armstrong took it. Now there is Carpets, and that's an important time gap which we'll log here because it might mean the white jersey is coming his way. That's why he's racing to every inch of the road. He came good yesterday in the time trial, the Russian rider looking now to win the white jersey. It's up to how well has Thomas Vogler now made the descent from the top of the Croix Free. We won't know that for a couple of minutes, but there was about 10 seconds difference in this competition at the top of the climb. And as we look, riders are picking up here Vladimir Carpet, so that could mean he hasn't made such a good chase down.
Well, that's Francisco Mancebo coming in there with Laurent Dufaux, and of course Richard Viron just moving up to the line, and also Giuseppe Guerini. And it looks very much as, in fact, over the last few kilometers, the man at the front there, Vladimir Carpets, did fade. But Phil, for me, the day belongs to Lance Armstrong, who was absolutely superb at the front end of the bike race. He was absolutely determined that somebody from US Postal Service had to win the stage.
And so we're looking now at Sandy Cassar crossing the line. He's another man who will challenge for that white jersey, but the clock is counting down to see if Thomas Voigtler, who led this race for 10 days, can at least prepare to ride to Paris in white tomorrow, and I'm not sure he will. But let's have a look at the Pacific Life stage results. Lance Armstrong gets his 4th stage win of the Tour de France, and he pips Cloden on the line, and he won't believe he lost that. Jan Ullrich is 3rd, Ivan Basso. Those top 4 riders in the Tour de France have the top 4 places on the stage today. They're timed at a 2nd. Landis the Worker is in 5th place. Axel Merck, Levi Leipheimer rode extremely well today, and I think you will find he is up into 9th place overall. But what an incredible race it was today, and what a finish by Armstrong who does not know the word defeat. He can win any way he likes in this year's Tour de France. We'll be back with all...
I'd love to know one.
Down on Le Grand Bornand. He's left his name on this valley as well. Lance Armstrong has just won his third straight stage of the Tour de France. There's no holding him back. He takes a 20-second win bonus. He goes further overall. He makes 21 seconds, in fact, on Ivan Basso. Here we go. The Foster's general classification. Armstrong now ups his lead from 3:48 to 4:09 on Ivan Basso. Andreas Kloden stays third. He's gone back as well. He was 5:03 to 5:11. Ulrich goes from 7:55 to 8:08. Acevedo holds his fifth place, but from 9:19 to over 10 minutes. And Levi Leipheimer has climbed that one place, albeit by just 8 seconds over Pietro Cacchioli. Leipheimer riding a great race, even so. And I think we can show you further down. Here we are. Christophe Moreau had a great ride today. He's 12th now, up from 14th. Thomas Vogler, he's in 15th place overall, drops 2 places, but he holds his white jersey by seconds. I can't give you the seconds, but we will find out. He again fights back to keep the leader's white jersey in the Tour de France. So let's have a look at our Subaru moment, driven by what's inside. And it's the question we'd all love to know: what is inside Lance Armstrong? Because at this moment in time, Andreas Kloden had won the stage. Then he suddenly heard him coming, looked over, thought, heck, I've got to go. It was all too late. There's no second kick allowed. Lance Armstrong sees that finishing line. He grabs it like a magnet, hits the line, wins by half a length. And look at that. Jan Ullrich couldn't believe it. He was just so in despair. The speed of Armstrong as he jumps on that big gear, half a length, you see, on the line. That's our Subaru moment, driven by what's inside. So as we look across Le Grand Bornand, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll hear from Armstrong and we'll hear from the hero of the day, Floyd.